All right, so these three questions are a little bit different than your first three questions because in these three questions, the first three questions that you had, those were questions you would have experienced in grade 7. Because in your equation, in your linear equation, you had positive coefficients, and that was it. So you had something that worked out to be something like 2x plus 1 equals y, or 4x minus 3 equals y, or anything that would have encountered in a grade 7 algebra question. In grade 8, in algebra, what you learned is that you learned how to manipulate variables when they had negative coefficients. And in these questions here, all we've done is we've assigned negative coefficients in them to change it a little bit to make it a grade 8 question. So the first question says, what's the equation for this graph? Your procedure is still the same. You're going to take your x and your y, and you're going to graph the 3 points. So x is 1, y is 0, x is 2, y is negative 2, and x is 3, and y is negative 4. So once you have your table of values, that's how you find your equation. You need a table of values. You're going to look for your coefficient. Now here, the difference between here and here is not 2, it's actually negative 2. Okay, it's going down by 2. And the difference here is going up by 1, so it's going positive 1. And a negative 2 divided by a positive 1 equals negative 2. And therefore, in your equation, negative 2 is your coefficient. Okay? So once you have your coefficient, you're going to find your constant by substituting any ordered pair you have. Negative 2 multiplied by 1. So we have a 1 for the x and a 0 for the y. So a 1 for the x and a 0 for the y. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 does not equal 0, but if I add 2, a negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. And therefore your equation for this line is negative 2x plus 2 equals your y value. Your next question gives you negative 4x plus 1 equals y. And what we're going to do here, I'm going to make an x and y table. And in here, for this equation, I'm going to randomly assign 1, 2, and 3 for x. So once I make my table of values, I put 1, 2, 3 for y. I'm going to take my equation, and I'm going to substitute x for 1, x for 2, and x for 3 into it 3 different times. So negative 4 times 1. We're going to simplify that down to negative 3 equals y. And that's going to go right there. Then we're going to take 2 and we're going to put it right there. And that's going to become negative 8 plus 1, which will be negative 7 for your y value. And then the last one we're going to do, we're going to take 3 and substitute it there. And negative 12 plus 1 is going to be negative 11. And that's going to go there. So once we have that, we now have our table of values from our equation. And we're going to plot our 3 points. First one is going to be 1 on the x and negative 3 on the y right there. We're going to put 2 on the x and negative 7 on the y. And 3 and negative 11. And then we're going to connect those 3 points. And we're going to say that this line is negative 4x plus 1 equals y. And your last question, what's the equation? So we're going to write down our x equals y, like we always do when we're finding the equation. The difference here in the y column is going down 4 each time. So minus 4 is your difference in your y column. In your x column, it's going down by 2. And a negative 4 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 2, which means the coefficient is 2. Now that we have our coefficient, take your x and substitute it in. Take your y and substitute it in. Negative 4 does not equal 12. So in order to get a negative 4 to equal 12, we have to add 16, which means our constant is plus 16, and that is your equation.